First news that I want to share is coming from Vzгляд newspaper. Well, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant sets a new record for the longest period of operation without external power supplies, which is not really a good record, obviously. Extremely dangerous developments are happening in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant due to terrorist activity of Western backer regime of Zelensky, terrorist regime of Zelensky, and its NATO backers. Let me give you that are constantly shelling Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and disconnecting the NPP from outside power sources that are essential for many technical operations on the ZMPP, including cooling system, right? Let me give you some details here, friends. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has surpassed a record 3-year period without external power supply, according to Evgenia Yashina, the plant's communications director. Yes, we overcome it, she said in response to a question on this matter. TASS news agency reported earlier. Nuclear power plant specialists have notified International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, experts of their readiness to begin repairs to the last external power line damaged on September 23rd as a result of strikes by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. However, the work cannot begin due to ongoing shelling by Ukrainian forces. Yashina added that Rosatom and IAEA management discussed the current situation at their facility. Furthermore, the IAEA received regular updates on the plant's current status. As a reminder, last week the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was left without external power supply. Earlier, the director of the Zaporizhzhia NPP announced the possibility of providing power supply to the station, and well, as I said, this is quite dangerous stuff. Currently, power supply is organized by diesel electric generators, but you always need to have some reserve lines of power, because we are talking about nuclear power plant, and even though all the reactors, by the way, are in cold shutdown, nevertheless, nuclear fuel rods have to be cooled down constantly. You cannot stop cooling this fuel down, otherwise it will temperature will rise and eventually it will go into meltdown, and that is extremely dangerous, of course. Last time world observed the meltdown of reactor or fuel occurred in Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan after tsunami damaged the power plant, and their cooling system was no longer operational. So that's what is happening, dear friends. Of course, all of us understand that Kiev regime is targeting Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant with orders from NATO, first of all from UK. Maybe British aristocracy, British elites are thinking that they are too far away from this area and they would not experience any harm if one or several reactors on the NPP goes in meltdown and some nuclear disaster occurs. But they are wrong. I can tell that. I can tell them that they are very much wrong. Let's hope there will be no issues with the diesel generators, and Russian engineers will manage to reestablish outside power supply for the NPP. But situation is very serious. Situation is very serious and definitely worth our attention. After all, the NPP is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. That says it all, I think. Also, dear friends, during the day, according to TASS news agency, Kiev regime, with assistance of NATO, was continuing to conduct terrorist attacks on Russian Federation. And Defense Ministry reported that 12 drones, aircraft-type drones, were intercepted by Russian air defense systems from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Moscow time. I guess since 5 p.m., some more drones were also neutralized by air defense, and this is a constant struggle of Russian air defense. Unfortunately, Ukrainian terrorists, with assistance of NATO, are launching these drones basically non-stop, and air defense systems are constantly on high alert. TASS news agency is also reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Verbovo settlement in Dnipropetrovsk region. Yet another progress of the Russian armed forces on the line of contact. Let me show you the difference. Location of the Verbovo settlement. I predicted a couple of days ago that most likely Russian troops will move into Verbovo and establish control of the settlement rapidly. And that's exactly what happened. This is the settlement, by the way, that we are talking about. It is under Russian control. Defense Ministry confirmed this information, which means that clearing operation has finished in this area. Also, according to a number of other sources, Russian troops are finalizing clearing operation in Novoigorovka settlement, which is Zaporizhzhia region. And as you can see, if you take a look at the map, Russian troops clearly moving westwards to cut their main supply and support line of Kiev regime's forces in Gulyai Pole, in this relatively larger town. And this line here is that main supply and support road that is used by Kiev regime's forces. So soon, if my understanding, my reading of the big picture is correct, soon probably we will see Russian advances in direction of Vishnyovo settlement. I guess in next 24 to 48 hours, we will begin receiving informations about battles inside Vishnyovo. Also, Kirpichna and Yegorovka settlements and Privolna settlement. All of these villages are Dnipropetrovsk region. Simultaneously, I think Russian troops in Zaporizhzhia region will move towards Krasnogorsk Ribna settlements to further advance offensives towards this main supply and support line. And dear friends, what should we keep in mind is that Dnipropetrovsk region, unlike DPR, is not that heavily urbanized. And so when Russian troops will prepare well enough ground for a sectoral scale offensive operation, and when they will receive order from general staff, advance in Dnipropetrovsk will be much more faster, much more rapid than we have seen in any other sectors of the front line, especially in DPR, LPR, because as I said, these regions are industrial regions and extremely urbanized, and every small or bigger village, town, city, of course, is being turned into a stronghold after 2014 by Western-backed terrorist regime of in Kiev. Let's continue with some other news. And well, I did mention this news in today's first update that initially was published on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And then, dear friends, I used the Rumble Studio to launch a premiere of this first update after several hours that it was published on Patreon and Boosty. And what happened is that Rumble Studio launched actually live stream, not a premiere that also looks like live stream, but actual live stream. Right, that was surprising to me, but nevertheless, vek živi, vek uči, as one say goes. Yeah, in Russian, some additional experience when it comes to operating with Rumble. And so during the first update, I did mention this report that Russian armed forces liberated 19 settlements in September alone in the past month. I can give you some details on that. I think this is important, especially if we're taking in account that some new members in alternative media in general might watch my this update, and they're probably those people going to be surprised to hear that last month alone 19 settlements were liberated by Russian forces, because all they hear from Western MSM and Western so-called politicians and their military leaders and others is that there is a stalemate. Russia is not achieving anything, and there are no advance and nothing. While in reality, since the beginning of this year, more than 200 settlements were liberated, and just past month, 19 settlements. And I can give you details on that. The largest number of settlements were liberated in Dnipropetrovsk region and the DPR, 8 each. This is just September. So in Dnipropetrovsk region, these settlements are Novoselovka, Хорошая, Sosnovka, Novopetrovskaya, Novonikolaevka, Biryozovo, Kalinovskaya, and Stepovo. This is Dnipropetrovsk, and already this month, by the way, more settlements being added. And just a minute ago, I reported about liberation of this one, Verbovo settlement, right, which is also Dnipropetrovsk region, and progress will continue, of course. And in DPR, Russian armed forces liberated Fyodorovka, Markova, Muravka, Peryezdnaya, Mayskaya, Shandrigolova, Kirovsk, and actually more settlements being liberated in the DPR. But you know, the Russian Defense Ministry, extremely conservative institution, and even though many Telegram channels, for example, many military channels are reporting about further progress of the Russian armed forces and even liberation of this or that settlement, Defense Ministry quite often takes a day or two, sometimes even more than that, to confirm progress of the Russian troops. And this report is based on confirmed reports, right? Confirmed by Defense Ministry. Also, dear friends, in addition to that, Russian armed forces liberated Olgovskaya and Novoivanovka settlements in Zaporizhzhia region and also Yunakovka in Sumy region. I will say quite important, significant progress of the Russian armed forces on line of contact, and someone should share this information with their Western so-called elites so that they will know a little better. Otherwise, I mean, they becoming too boring, constantly talking about some freaking stalemate. In which universe are those people? Anyways, dear friends, RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian armed forces struck a ship repair yard in Odessa region. So Russian military forces struck ship repair yard in Izmail city of Odessa region. This was reported by Nikolaev resistance coordinator Sergei Lebedev. We have some details here. So Izmail strike on the port infrastructure. The strike hit their territory of a ship repair yard. The arrival of several dark-colored military boats from Romania was previously noted, as well as the refitting of Ukrainian patrol boats for combat missions. As the underground workers clarified, the plant restores boats, modernizes them for military operations, and trains their crews. And dear friends, let me show you geography of this strike. It's right next to Romania, by the way. It's on a Danube. It's on a Danube River. So this is how Danube River moves in their area, right? And this is Izmail city, and this facility that was targeted by Russian forces, and hopefully all the military equipment in this facility was destroyed. And when it comes to these vessels that were targeted, they've been sent from Romania, right? And as you can see, dear friends, Romania is on the other side of the Danube River. A border between Odessa region and Romania goes through the river here, right? And this red line indicates the line of border. But nevertheless, when it comes to terrorist activity, criminal activity of the NATO countries, they are active, by the way. They are active, and just like little earlier than this live stream, I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page reporter, which is originally comes from Reuters, that the French Navy on Tuesday detained a tanker of the country's coaster, which allegedly belongs to the so-called Russian Shadow Fleet. You can see on your screen, dear friends, this episode when French Navy sent its boat to attack the vessel. Basically, this is piracy, right? Agency specifies that the tanker Borasei is under the sanctions by the UK and EU. Earlier this year, the vessel was already detained by Estonian authorities for sailing without a valid national flag. According to marine trafficker, Borasei, carrying oil, departed from the Russian port of Primorsk on September 20 passed through the Baltic Sea, circled Denmark from the north, then entered the North Sea and proceed west through the English Channel. The tanker is currently anchored near the city of Saint-Nazaire in France. So this is piracy. This is piracy. Tanker is, I guess, carrying Russian oil potentially. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's empty. Who knows? But maybe it's carrying Russian oil. Clearly, act of piracy, criminal act, terrorism on part of France, French elites, and let's see how Russia will respond on that. Meanwhile, Western elites are emboldened, globalists, their allies are emboldened, and therefore, including in US, by the way, neocons and so on, and therefore we have this report from Kommersant newspaper, which is based on an original report of Bloomberg, that G7 countries have almost agreed to tighten sanctions against Russia. United States, United Kingdom, France, and other G7 countries are close to agree to tighten sanctions against Russia, according to Bloomberg. And Bloomberg is citing a draft of the joint statement. I can give you some details on that. Document indicates that their countries intend to tighten sanctions targeting Russia's energy sector. They already began, by the way, and France already arrested one vessel, and tomorrow, day after, more vessels can be arrested that are either belong to Russian companies or maybe are linked to Russia some ways. Also, G7 wants to tighten their sanctions against financial sector. I mean, is there anything left on financial sector? But anyways, and also on military industry. Okay, they also plan to strengthen measures against the states and organizations that support Moscow's military efforts and help it evade existing sanctions. Furthermore, they plan to impose measures against the Russian oil companies and coordinate their further use of Russian frozen assets. They're going to steal Russian frozen assets. And when it comes to, countries that are working with Russia, well, India already being targeted by US. Maybe Europe will go ahead and also impose some tariffs and sanctions on India, maybe on China too. We just don't know. And as long as these Western so-called elites are not being put in their places, by the way, they will continue this escalatory ladder, right? As long as leadership of India, leadership of China, leadership of Brazil, South Africa, Indonesia, by the way, other countries worldwide, are not saying that this war is an existential struggle for humanity in which Russia is fighting war of humanity against the evil, and until all these countries, by the way, will get engaged in this fight, in this strike against the evil, well, Western elites will continue to act like they are final bosses of this world. Am I correct? That's exactly what is going to happen, by the way. And, let's see, man. Let's see what is going to happen. At least for now, all the countries, by the way, that consider themselves to be Russian friends are still playing in this game of neutral. Russia is in war against evil, and these countries that claim to be friendly to us are still claiming that they are neutral. I mean, what can I say, man? What can I say? Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting, and I mentioned this news in first update, that draft resolution to seize frozen Russian assets has been introduced to U.S. Senator, and U.S. senators basically want to seize frozen Russian assets and then transfer 10 billion of Ether from Ether every single month to Kyiv regime, and this way or any other way, but eventually globalists, neocons, and all the others that are in charge of West, they're going to steal these assets, right? This process taking just too long, right? They are messing around topic of, how legit that will be if we steal these assets, and maybe we should not, and maybe we should, while whole world understands that they're going to steal these assets anyways, right? And whole world understands that Western financial and the banking system cannot be trusted no more. That's it, right? And Western economies are not the economies that you should invest ever, because your assets can be taken away from you like that at any given point. We all know this. We all know this, right? So I don't think these games of the Western so-called elites to somehow justify and the stealing of the Russian assets will influence anything really. Whoever is capable of thinking and analyzing, they already know that you cannot invest in the West. It's just a gamble of on crazy levels. And if you are serious, personal, in the individual or business, you wouldn't risk that much. That's it. And that's why, by the way, even Gulf states that are heavily dependent or heavily influenced by the West are trying to pull out their investments from Western economies and find some other ways to keep their assets, right? This is a slow process because they are afraid that they're going to trigger some reactions from Western capitals, but they are in a process, right? Anyways, meanwhile, the Geopolitics Telegram channel reported that Ursula von der Leyen, head of European Commission, declared that Ukraine is the EU's first line of defense, announcing new 4 billion euro transfer for Zelensky's regime, including 2 billion euro specifically for drones. So another 4 billion, by the way, another 4 billion euros from European taxpayers is going to Zelensky's pocket and pockets of all the other corrupt elements. Okay, I mean, what we can do about it? It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, man. This is war. This is war, man. Right? And the West is fighting us. West wants to kill us all, destroy Russia, divide Russia, and rob it from everything. Right? This is war that West is waging against us, and we should begin acting against West in a kind. And also there was a report, by the way, by Jerusalem Post, based on some senior IDF official, that Israel might go ahead with attacks on Iran again. And that senior IDF official warned of renewed escalation, adding multiple scenarios being prepared, including another strikes on Iran. And I'm not at all surprised. Of course, they will attack Iran. Of course, they will attack Iran. I said a billion times before that globalists and the neocons, also Zionists, of course, maybe for different reasons, but all are on the same page when it comes to provoking a regional war in the Middle East on sectarian and ethnic lines, and they're not going to stop. Of course, they will go ahead with this, and very soon, because I reported a couple of days ago that after Saudi Arabia signed their mutual military defense pact agreement with Pakistan, gaining nuclear umbrella, allegedly Iran's supreme leader's leading aide also stated that Tehran might also consider to join this agreement, to conduct talks with Pakistan and to join this agreement, which will, give Iran nuclear umbrella too. And before this is happening, of course, globalists, neocons, and Zionists will go ahead with attacks, right, on Iran, and will with all sorts of provocations to provoke regional war, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf, and cut off China and the rest of the global South from Middle Eastern energy sources. That is the main goal for globalists and neocons, right? For them, it's all about domination in this world and harming a global South, emerging multipolar world. While for Zionists, for Israeli lobby, Israeli regime, it's more local topic. All Israel wants and Zionists is to keep all the regional countries weak in civil wars, in war with each other, right? So that they would not get united to deter Israel. So as I said, all these forces, Zionists, neocons, globalists, for different reasons, maybe different calculus, but are on the same page in regards to the stabilization of Middle East. And soon we might see the second phase of this destabilization. 3 months ago, we already see first one with the Israeli-US attacks on Iran. And maybe this report that I mentioned in previous updates about transfer of US refueling aircrafts and fighter jets to Middle East in big numbers is related to preparations of the ground for next phase of escalation in the Middle East. Otherwise, why would they transfer so much refueling aircrafts and fighter jets? And more is on the way. Most likely, explanation is that they are planning something big, right? And when it comes to Middle East, by the way, it's either provoking regional war, and they can do it, I guess, while attacking Iran and provoking conflict between Iran and some neighbors there, right? And also, we should keep in mind that I said today in today's first update, Russia still has bases in Syria, by the way. Russia still has bases in Syria, and maybe when NATO launches its next phase of escalation with Russia, with the unprecedented scale of attacks, maybe they will attack Russian military bases in Syria too. Cannot be ruled out. I would not rule out such a scenario because Western world is run by psychos, right? So they are capable of anything, absolutely. Meanwhile, recent strike of Israel on Qatar, I guess, really scared local elites in the Gulf kingdoms, including in Qatar itself, for a reason. And I guess that's why U.S. Or Trump, according to these reports, gives Qatar security guarantees. After this Israeli strike, U.S. will regard an attack on Qatar as a threat to itself. In case of an attack, the U.S. May respond militarily. This is not their obligation to respond militarily. This is just an attempt of White House, attempt of U.S. administration to calm Qatari leadership and to calm leadership of other Gulf states. This will not work. Of course. All these people in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait, and Bahrain, and elsewhere there, probably all of them were thinking, and what, as long as we are investing in US bonds, in Europe, as long as we have hundreds of billions in Western financial and banking system, in Western economies, so we are kind of safe, they're not going to attack us. Well, they did find out just like 2 weeks ago, isn't it, that this is not the case. And Israel can actually take out anyone in the Middle East like that without any issues. And all their statements from US that these Gulf states are allies and this and that is just fake words, as it is the case with this particular report, right? That White House issues some guarantees for Qatar. What guarantees? They, even on the level of statement, didn't obligate themselves to defend Qatar. Might be the case. We don't know. There are some games, by the way, that not just Western elites can play. Others can play too, and maybe even better, right? RIA Novosti is reporting that, according to media, White House is seeking the removal of Venezuelan president from power. No surprises there. The report is coming from New York Times, according to which members of U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, are seeking the ouster of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. In recent days, efforts by senior aides to President Trump to remove Nicolas Maduro from power have intensified, with administration officials discussing a broader campaign that could lead to increased military pressure to force his ouster. This is being led by Secretary of State and their National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio. Rubio claims Maduro is an illegitimate leader who oversees drug exports to the United States. Their article says, who gives a damn what Rubio says, man? Who the hell is Rubio, man? This dirty fucking animal. He is a dirty fucking animal. That's what it is, man. Right? I wish Venezuelan people good luck, best of luck, by the way, and hopefully they will fight. I don't really care about Maduro's regime, never will. It's not my country after all. But I wish best of luck to Venezuelan people, and I wish them victory if US will dare to attack them and try to recolonize, for sure. And hopefully many groups worldwide, from PMCs to other powerful groups that can provide Venezuela with all sorts of weapon systems, will do it. Will do it. This is necessary, right? It's a fight of good against evil, right? Western world is evil. Western elites are evil, and the rest of the world has to protect itself. It is what it is. Meanwhile, the National Assembly of Venezuela ratified the Treaty on Strategic Partnership and Cooperation with the Russian Federation. This was reported by the Russian ambassador to Caracas, Sergei Melik Bagdasarov. And I was looking for some additional information on this matter, what this partnership is. A strategic partnership means is if there is a military component in it, mutual protection or something like that. In reports that I find out, there was not a single word about military side of the things. There is none, maybe, or who knows, maybe it's just classified. In any case, we will find out soon, and I will not be surprised really if in this agreement, once it's implemented, right, there will be some classified part on mutual or military assistance too, which will give Russia a legal basis to assist Venezuela in case of war. And Russia can assist, by the way. Russia can transfer some anti-ship missiles, maybe already did, who knows, right? Maybe North Korea did, not Russia, but North Korea that has, also capable systems, right? Maybe someone else, so that when Washington will go ahead with military actions against Venezuela, they will quickly find out that their navy is no longer forced to be reckoned with. We will see, but report itself is definitely interesting, and timing is interesting, isn't it? Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with the crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.